going on, guys? Asset Addicts here again with you today, and we are going to upgrade my old gaming PC. I've had it for about 3 years, moving on to bigger platforms, playing some different games and stuff, and I really need to upgrade a few components. As you see, I have laying out here. I'll go over them later. But first, let's take a look at the old girl. We have a love-hate relationship, and she was my first PC I built. Okay. First PC I built, so it's hard to see her go, but it, as you'll see as I go over the case, there was not a lot of room for expansion left inside. I made a first-time buyer's mistake when I bought this case. I want style over what I actually needed. And let's just open it up, and I'll show you. Go ahead and come in closer. As you can see, everything's a little cramped in there, and if you see right here on the bottom that my graphics card is actually resting on one of my hard drives. So there's a lot of sag in the board. So I made sure when I upgraded to my new case, we're actually going to be putting everything into this deep cool Tesseract computer case here. This is actually the second case I've worked with. Pink's computer actually has the same case, except hers is a blue theme, where mine's red. So I like the red and black theme. And I had so much fun just working with this case with all the room that's inside that I had to make sure I got one when I upgraded. But first, before we start upgrading anything, let's go over what's actually in this computer. So starting off with our motherboard, we have a MSI 760 GMA P34FX motherboard. Now sitting on top of that is a AMD FX 4350 quad-core processor clocked at about 4 gigahertz. On the bottom here we have a Gamers Edition MSI 750 Ti, which is overclocked out of the box, 16 gigs of memory, and a EVGA 50-watt 80-plus certified power supply. I also have a ASUS optical drive up front. And the two hard drives combined gives me about 2 terabytes of disk space. But we're actually going to stop the camera and we're going to tear this down and we'll start upgrading to the new case. Okay, so we have all of our components that I need for the new build out of the old computer, except for the motherboard and the CPU and the cooler, which will be used in a different build I plan to do later on. But before I go over the parts and before we even start the build, I just want to touch base on precautions you should take when building a computer. Because static electricity could damage or even destroy any component in your computer. I'm actually working in a laminated environment right now. The floor is laminated, so I don't really have much risk for static, but there is things that you can get to completely put your mind at ease when it comes to working with computer components. Like here on what I have some of my components sitting on right here, this is actually a static-free work pad. You can pick these up on Amazon for pretty cheap. And also stuff like this. It's a static-free wristband. Basically the band just goes around your wrist, and you would clip this like onto your case, and it would eliminate any static charge that you might build up. But anyways, let's go over the parts. So over here we have our power supply. Here's my optical drive. I just cannot go without one. So I'm one of them guys, I feel like if I don't put one in, I'm gonna find something that I would need it for and not have it. So I still like burning DVDs, I like burning CDs. I know it's like, oh, 2005 of me. I have my 2 sticks of 8 gigs of Team Dark memory for 16 gigs total. My 2 hard drives. The hard disk drives, I know you're probably thinking, why don't I have an SSD, at least for my operating system? Everything I do is always on a budget. In this build, I figured it was more important to upgrade my motherboard and my CPU over my hard drives or even my graphics card. You see right here, this is the MSI Edition Twin Fan Gaming Series 750 GTX 750 Ti. It is overclocked. I couldn't tell you what it is overclocked. But those are all the old parts that I salvaged from my old PC that'll be going in here. But let's go move on here to the newer parts. Now this bad boy. This is the Asus 970 Gaming Pro Gamer Aurora motherboard. It is an AM3 chip based. So I made sure to upgrade my CPU to the AMD FX 8350 8-core processor. I believe it is clocked at 4 gigahertz. It might be overclocked to 4.1 out of the box. No, 4.2 gigahertz. And I also wanted to get an aftermarket cooler, because with this board, overclocking is fairly easy. I looked online for aftermarket coolers and stuff. I know Deepcool has a lot that are really nice, but I actually found a bundle, the processor, the 8350, with the AMD Wraith cooler, which is actually, I guess you consider, an aftermarket cooler. It's like this bad boy right here. This was actually bundled with this on Amazon. I usually buy all my parts from Newegg, but I found this on Amazon. On Newegg, you just got the AMD, the 8350 processor with the stock cooler, which if anyone is using AMD stock cooler knows it's like living next to the fucking airport listening to jets take off. It's that fucking loud. That was actually priced $10 more on Newegg than this bundle on Amazon. So about $130 I think I spent for the processor and the cooler. And I looked up these coolers, and these coolers actually run about $40 to $50 themselves. So that's actually a pretty good deal. So we'll be throwing that in there today as well. Okay, so we're going to start our build here, and the first thing I usually do is I put everything on my motherboard, which is usually, it's going to be the CPU, the cooler, and the RAM. I don't put the graphics card on until it's actually in the case. But we'll go ahead here and we'll put on our CPU. Even got this cool little case badge. We'll make sure we put that off to the side. But then to put on a CPU, all I got to do is open up this lever. That'll open up the socket. Now when you handle a CPU, if I can open up the packaging, they say you can go ahead and you can handle the top, but with natural oils and stuff in your finger, I would try to avoid touching anything on the CPU but like the corners. It's really the only way to pick up a CPU is on the corners. Now if you look on the bottom, all these are little pins. And those, if you're not careful, you can actually bend those pins. They are possible to bend back, but it's better just to avoid touching them whenever you can. Now you just need to find out how to orient it here on the board. And if you look really close, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there's a little arrow right here on the motherboard. And then if you look at the CPU, there's a little gold arrow on the CPU. All you need to do is just match them up. And it should fit right in there. Wiggle it a little bit just to make sure that it's in place. And then go ahead and put the lever down. You might hear a little crunching or cracking. That's okay, it's normal. And just make sure she's tightened down just like that. And there you go, guys. We just put on our CPU. Next thing we're going to put on is the cooler. So we're going to grab our cooler. Now, most of these coolers that come out of the box with the Intel and the AMD usually come pre-applied with thermal paste. I always will wipe it off. I won't apply it with the thermal paste on. I like to apply my own, and especially for the sake of this video showing you guys how to put a computer together, I wanted to make sure that was wiped off. Now you might be asking yourself, what does thermal paste do? Well, your processor gives off heat. This thermal paste actually helps to collect that heat, which then your cooler disperses. Now how much of this thermal paste do you put on? Not much. Some people say about the size of a grain of rice. Some people say about the size of a pea. Try it right here in the middle. Usually go with the grain of rice. That should be just about all you need, guys. Right there. If you put too much on, it could run over the sides, it can make a mess. You do not need that much. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to put our cooler on. And we'll see if today is a good day or a bad day on how hard these things are to put on sometimes. I was actually surprised when I built Pink's computer. She had, I believe it was a deep cool. Mm-hmm. And that was actually easier to put on than a normal freaking stock cooler, which I was really surprised. So it should just fit right on your CPU. Oh, don't you be a bitch. Should be some brackets right here on the side. Hang that up. Oh, yes you are. Yes you are. Now you're hooked up there. No, you're not. Let's get you hooked up. You're hooked up. There we go. Oop.
There you don't go.
Almost. There we go. CPU cooler is on in the right position now. Take our CPU connector here, and you see on the board it says CPU fan. Just plug it in right. Yeah. There we go. CPU fan is connected. Now let's put on our RAM. Now you can see here we actually have 4 slots for memory. You'll have to look at your user's guide for your motherboard if you have more than 2 slots, just to see in which channel they're set up. Because you don't want to say, like let's say this one is like channel 1A. Well, you put both cards here. Well, this one happens to be channel 1B. And 1A is right here, then you're only using half the area memory. They have to be plugged into the same channel. Looking at my manual as I did earlier, actually these two are the same channel. So let's grab your memory. Look where this little indentation is here on the card. And you'll notice here on the board, you see a little slot right there. You just want to make sure that's lined up. And make sure that you're opened up here on the side. So slide your card in. Oh, it looks like we're just going to have enough clearance there. And don't be afraid to put a little pressure down until you hear that clip. Let's do the same with the other card. A little pressure. There we go, guys. So here's our memory is installed. Our CPU is in the board. Our cooler, which was a massive pain in the ass, is on the board. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount this inside. Actually, what we're going to do is I'm going to put the power supply in the computer first, just so that's in there and out of the way. And then we're going to mount the motherboard onto the case. Alright guys, so I got the case laid out here, and we're going to get ready to put in our power supply and our motherboard. Now, not every case is the same. Some cases, especially like these tower cases, you're either going to have your power supply mounted on the bottom, like you can see here, here's this rectangular cutout, that's where your power supply is going to go. But like if you noticed on my other case, the power supply was mounted on top. So you just got to notice, you just got to kind of realize where in the case that is going to be oriented. So all we need to do is grab our power supply and just butt it right up to the case here. And you'll notice on the other side there's 4 holes for 4 screws. Just kind of line that up. And we can just put in our screws. Usually don't tighten them down all the way until I have all 4 in, just in case it decides to shift. And I forgot to mention too, guys, the only tools you really need to have on you when you're building a PC is just a good screwdriver set. And it can be magnetic, believe it or not. It will not damage any component on your computer if you have a magnetic screwdriver. And it's actually preferred to have a magnetic screwdriver in case you happen to drop a screw in your case. and you are already about 3 or 4 beers deep into your build, and you start to hulk out. So then we just tighten these down. There we go, power supply is in. Now you can build your computer in any step you want, really, whatever makes sense to you. This is just the way that I do it. I always put the power supply in before I put in the motherboard, just so that it's in and it's out of the way. Because with the motherboard like this, it might be a little harder to get the power supply in with the bigger motherboard. Now, one thing I will say about this motherboard is that I went ahead and I bought a open boxed motherboard on Newegg, which I trust Newegg. They always test their components and they usually always work. But in this case, it did not come with an I/O shield. Now, if you don't know what an I/O shield is, it's actually, if you look on the back of your computer, if you have a desktop, look on the back of your computer, and there's a metal plate that will fit in right here that all of your components poke through. Well, this motherboard doesn't have one, so, well, you know, I bought the board, I knew it was open box, I paid for 3-day shipping, and the son of a bitch almost took a freaking week to get here. So I've had about enough, and I'm just going to use the damn board. And you'll notice in the case, there are these standoffs. Now this one is already fitted, might be fitted for the board that we're using, but they should, you get a bunch with your case, they look something like that. Basically, it's just like a spacer that keeps your motherboard from coming in contact with the back of your case, causing any potential shorts. But all we need to do is you can grab your CPU cooler. It ain't gonna come off. I would really shit my pants if the fucker came off right now. I really would. And just set the board down and line it up with the spacers that you have installed that are pre-installed, and just kind of look and see if you need to install some more. I think I have 2. No, actually I think they're all on there. Wow. Thank you, Deep Cool. So just line it up as best as you can. And since this doesn't have an I/O shield, well, we'll have to worry about that. So then you just make sure you grab your screws. This is where a magnetic screwdriver would come in handy. And you just start tightening her down. Oh, I can already tell this is going to be a bitch. Hope I'm using the right size freaking screws. There's no build that doesn't come with its own set of trouble. This is probably the top 5 things I hate about building computers. Is this little stuff like this. I don't have real steady hands, and some of this stuff takes a steady hand. But really, oh my god. Is this screwdriver magnetic? Let's find out. No, it is not. But I got lucky. I got lucky. Now, where the hell was I? This cord's in your way there?
A little bit.
Oh, what the hell was I saying?
Just trying to flash my bling.
Guys, when it comes to building a computer, just have patience. You know, consider the fact that you are spending hundreds to some builds even a couple grand in parts. That, you know, just take your time, you know. Take your time. Now, when I did my first build, my first computer costed about, I don't know, $500-600, I think. Maybe a little more. I don't know. It's been a while. And Pink was going to kill me if it didn't work, because I spent that much money on something that I've never done before, and she probably would have filleted me alive if if I would have did anything to that computer, or if I built it and it didn't work. So far, so good. Screws, so tiny, so small. So many. This is the first full-size motherboard I've actually worked with. Usually with like micro ATX and stuff, you don't really have this many screws to put in. You know, you don't have to catch the angle of me getting every screw there, Pink.
I was taking artistic license.
Oh, artistic license.
With my knockoff selfie stick.
Frickin' selfie sticks, man. Okay, we almost got all these screws in. I think I got 3 more after this one. But you want to make sure you get them all in. You want your motherboard to be in there. Especially if you're going to be moving your PC around quite a bit. You don't want anything to rock. Don't want anything to rock around. Guys, this is not a magnetic screwdriver. Not a magnetic screwdriver. Okay. Oh, I saved the worst for last. Right behind the freaking cooler. Worst goddamn possible spot in the freaking world. You ain't gonna get this. What the hell do you think you're doing?
I do what I want.
Alright. One more. This is supposed to be a video of a guy that knows what he's doing. So let it look like a goddamn rookie.
Like I said, it was so professional.
Hey, but if you... Come on. If you're not having fun when you're building your computer, you're doing it wrong. Let's drink a beer.
What about a sarcastic wife that gives you a lot of shit?
Nah. It happens. Okay, guys. So we finally have our motherboard put into place.
One eternity later.
Yes. It does take a while. It does take a while. Well, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to put in my hard drives. I'm going to put in my optical drive too. But let's put in the hard drive first. I want to show off these nice little trays. These nice little disc trays. They are plastic though. That's what I don't really care for. They're plastic. All you do is just you pop the you pop. Okay. So I got the hard drive in the tray. I'm just gonna slide that right back in there. It clips back into place. I gotta put my other one on there. And notice on the hard drive, you got these holes. Try to match them up with the holes on the tray. It makes your life a lot easier. Just match it up in the holes.
That's what she said.
Hey, come on. This is a rated, well, PG-13.
Yeah, I didn't say any dirty words.
I can't say much. I'm drinking, so... Ooh, dusty. Alright. So we got both of them in their trays, in their slots. Now let's put in the optical drive. Look at this mess, guys. Look at, we're gonna have fun putting all that crap in together. Yeah, you guys are going to be along for the ride. I don't have to do it alone. To put in an optical drive, guys, do we have a problem putting in your optical drive? I can't remember.
I honestly don't remember because we had the little one's birthday party that day, and I was pretty much done at that point.
Yeah, but I remember I did it and I was drinking. I drank more than I drink now, so I think it just pops out. And they do pop out, guys. They do pop out. It's just that everyone's a little different. Ooh. I want the whole fucking thing to pop out. I don't want to chip my case either. Is it clips? Is there clips? Is there clips? Is there clips? Bastard. Bastard. Wait. Popped out the wrong one. Tried popping out the wrong one. Okay. All we need to do is slide. Oh no. No, go through this way. That's right. Slide our optical drive in. They got these handy dandy locking mechanism. I need my optical drive. Wait. What?
It's not going in because it doesn't... Oh. Looked like it didn't fit.
Yeah. See, you can't be a smart ass and win all the time.
Don't mind me, I'm a natural blonde.
There we go. Yeah, there's a locking mechanism on both sides. Now, how's that lock into place, I wonder? Okay, optical drive is installed after much pissing around. Now, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our graphics card. Your graphics card goes into your PCIe slot, which on this board actually has two, but you want to use the one that's closest to the CPU because that's the one that's going to take priority. This one right here. Like you can see on this card, it's going to take up two of these slots right here. So kind of just line your card up and see what slots it's going to take, and then just pop them out. Ain't that going to look like shit? Yeah, I could put a sound card or something there. Just line your card up, pop her into place. And you'll have two screws that you need to install right there. Yes, more screws. More screws for the graphics card. Find the ones that actually fit. Place. Make sure they're good and tight too, guys. You don't want that graphics card to sink. Alrighty, I can tell that I'm going to like this case a lot more because there's not a lot of save, if any, that graphics card. And it's not resting on my freaking hard disks. There we go. That's all you need to do with your graphics cards, guys. Unless it has like a, I believe there's usually a 6-pin power connector, in which case you just would hook your one of your actual CPU cable. I think this actually has, oh, they're labeled as PCIe cable into your graphics card, but this card doesn't need any external power. It actually draws it right from the motherboard itself. Alright, now comes every PC builder's favorite part of a computer build. Dealing with this mess. Easiest way to deal with this is just really to separate out which cable is which and where it goes. Now basically this right here, this is your 20 to 24 pin motherboard. It connects to your motherboard. It's to power your motherboard. And it is actually going to be the longest rail here on the board. Is that 24 or is that 20? That doesn't matter. But we're actually going to route this through the back and come out through here, because this case has supplied us with all of these nice little routing methods. And for the sake of the video, I might actually speed this up a little bit, or not, depending. If this is a first time build that you're seeing, I don't think I should really speed it up. Okay, now route this through here. And just look at which way it connects, which is this way. No, that is actually a 24 pin. I don't know why I thought it was 20. Just plug that right into the board. Should be able to hear it click. So there we go. We got our first connector up. Now these PCIe cables we are not going to need at all, so I'm actually just going to route these to the back of the case, get them out of our way. Yeah. These are for our hard drive, powering our hard drive and our DVD drive. Well, actually the same goes for these too. Ah, here we go. CPU power connectors. That is actually located right up here on the top of the case. Now all this, guys, can be, you can usually find this like in your manual to your motherboard. Usually show you where to go with the cables. Hopefully this cable is long enough to reach it. I think, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Okay, just gotta see where it fits in. This one's actually going to use all 8 connectors. I think that MSI board only used 4. Ugh. It just needs more power. There we go. I heard her click. I heard her click. Just gotta push that cable up there. Out of the way. Okay, what else do we got? Oh, these little doohickeys are Molex connectors. We'll usually use these to hook up and power our fans, but they also connect to the motherboard. So let's actually turn the case around. We're going to route these through to our hard drives. There we go. These actually connect one way. If you notice on the connector, you'll see a little lip there, right there on the side. You'll just see on the back of the hard drive, you'll see that same lip. Just connect her in. Like so. And just do the same with these. There is no specific order that you have to do this. There's not like the old ribbon cables or the old SATA cables on the old computers where you had like a slave drive and all that crap. Just hook them up. They're just power connectors. Right up there. We got this spare one that we'll just kind of tuck here in the bottom. I'm not the neatest with cable management. Same thing with these PCIe cables. We'll kind of just hide them. We'll hide them. That'll be our little secret, guys. Just put them in there. That's our little secret. Don't you tell anyone that cable's there, or I will find you. Okay, and then the same. Flip her around one more time. The same is going to go for our optical drive up here. Let's find the cable. Look for the connector. Same connectors as the hard drives. In there. Make sure I got the right side. Sit, boo-boo, sit. Good boy. Okay, so that's plugged in. Just gonna tuck this cable off to the side. Just for the sake of how nice this case actually does look, I probably will be a little neater with the cable management later on, because I still have this to deal with. Okay, let's laying the case back down. We're going to start to hook up our fans, our USB 3 connectors, all that fun stuff. Now this is actually a fan. You notice it has two connectors. It's usually just a power connector right here and then a connector for the motherboard. Now I am not 100% certain if it needs both. But I see that the motherboard here has a fan connector. I'm wondering that if the motherboard doesn't have enough fan connectors, that it actually can also use a Molex just to be able to run the case fan continuously, and this connector to run power off of the motherboard to where you can actually decide on how fast your case fans are actually running. So there's actually a case fan connector right here. I know it's a case fan connector because it is labeled case fan connector. That is only a 3-pin hookup. Well, worst comes to worst, it doesn't work and we'll figure it out. We also have another one here, another case fan, 3-pin. You see here, there's another labeled case fan. Just look how it's oriented and go ahead and plug it in. Careful not to bend the pins. Oh, no, that should actually be closer this way. There we go. And these cables, that's going to be a pain in the ass. I'll probably have to tie them off to something just so that they're out of the way. So I'm not big on cable management, but even that looks like crap. Okay, and then you have these connectors that are actually for like the front I/O of the case. Like right here we have a HD audio connector. We have our USB and USB 3 connector. And we have, what is this? Another USB connector. And then the bane of every computer builder's existence, all these freaking front panel LED power lights and all this bull crap. Anyone who builds their own PC, ask them about this, they'll tell you the same thing. I hate these things because you freaking spend forever putting them in, and then you find out you put them in backwards, and then you gotta do it all over again and waste of freaking time. Okay, basically with all these USB connectors, USB 3 connectors, just look for on the board. Alright guys, continuing on hooking up all this mess of cables. Just trying to tuck some of this stuff out of the way so it's out of sight, out of mind, so I can deal with it later. Alright, let's hook up our USB, our front USB header. Right here on the panel, there's a USB 3 connector right there, which is easy to get to. Little notch there. I'll just line her up and plug her in. Come in. There you go. All right. And this, I don't think that's really anything. And then here we have another USB connector. I think we can connect that down here at the bottom. So we got a few USB connectors right there for an abundance of front I/O panel goodness. I'm actually going to route this cable through the bottom of the case. Poke her up here through the bottom. And we will go ahead and plug her in right here. There we go. So that is connected. Now, the only question I was asking myself here before Pink started recording again, as I get these ugly things out of my way, is my HD audio cable. I'm not 100% sure where this goes. So that's what I think I'm actually going to look back on my other case and see where that actually was hooked up. Alright guys, I actually had to look back at the manual on this board to see where this HD audio cable actually gets connected. And it's actually right over here. It's actually not even the same as my other board. But we gotta route this cable through the bottom. Oh, God, I hope you freaking reach. Yeah, you're gonna reach. And of course, you're gonna be in a freaking awkward spot as all hell, and the greatest lighting in the world. Are you on there? Alright, yeah, you're on there. Alright. All these beautiful things. All these get connected to front panel connectors, usually around here in this area. And if you look really closely, you're not really going to be able to see it with the camera that we're using, but they are marked like power LED positive and negative. You just got to make sure you hook them up right. And I'm actually not even going to record this part because it might take me a while. Alright guys, I got that front panel LED power reset switch hooked up. The only way I'm going to tell if that's working is after we finalize the build, hook it up to a monitor, turn it on, see what happens. Worst thing what would happen is you have the positive and the negative switch, and you just basically switch them around. Trial and error, you'll eventually get it. They're just frustrating because they're very small and very hard to handle. And before I forget, we hooked up the power to our two hard drives and our optical drive, but we need to hook up the SATA cables. This is the only way that data will transfer from your hard drives and your optical drive to your motherboard. So we gotta make sure we hook these up. And their hookups are basically the same as the power hookups. Let's look and see which side the groove's on. This clips right in. These actually didn't come with the case. These are from my other build. I actually bought custom SATA cables just because I needed red SATA cables. And this bottom one is hooked up the same way. Should be able to hear it click. And we'll route these into the case. And sometimes you have to get longer SATA cables in some of these builds, especially with if you have a certain motherboard where the SATA hookups on the motherboard are too far away and your cables can't reach. So sometimes you have to buy them, but I mean, I think these were like, I got like 4 of them for maybe like $8. So they don't exactly break the bank. Let's route them through the cable, or through the case here. And on the other side, we got one for our optical drive. Hooks up the same exact way. Let's look for the hookup. Hear it click. Just route it down. Now, you just gotta look to see where they hook up onto the motherboard. You see right here in front of the graphics card, I think there's 2, 4, there's 6 SATA hookups right here. I don't really think it matters particularly what order you hook them up. So I think you can just determine in your motherboard's BIOS what drive is primary, secondary, so on and so forth. And they hook up the same way as you hooked them up on the drive themselves. You just have to look and see how they're orientated. See where that little tab is. I have horrible lighting that I'm working in here, so it's a little hard to see. Now the only thing left to do is put the sides on, hook up the power, hook up a monitor, see if it boots. Okay guys, I got everything put back together. I managed some of the cables. Moment of truth. Let's push the power button and see what happens. Well, she powers on. Oh. There we go, guys.
Here I was waiting for my build. I was waiting for my womp womp.
I don't have I don't have a keyboard or a mouse hooked up or whatever, so I would have to go into utility or the BIOS and choose what hard drive it's going to boot from. But let's see what we got here. Memory DDR3 at 1333 gigahertz. Blah, blah, blah. Asus 970 Pro, AMD FX 8350, 8-core processor. New CPU installed. Please enter setup to configure your system. Guys, I think that is pretty much complete. Now that I know that it boots, the Asus 970 Pro Gamer has an LED configuration on the motherboard, as you can see right here. It's basically just in a demo mode right now, but you can go into the BIOS and you can set the colors or whatever. Of course, that's going to be like a red strobe that I'm going to put on it. This case, if you come around the back, has an LED red fan for the exhaust right there on the back. And then on the front,
your phone's about ready to die.
We have an LED red glowing fan on the front. Well guys, I'd like to thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you found something informative. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you want to try to find, try to hunt for computer parts, build your own computer. I suggest 2 sites come to mind that really helped me build, learn how to build computers, guys. That is on YouTube. It's bitwit and JayzTwoCents. They have tons of videos on computer build, ranging from basic computer builds to advanced water cooling, mineral cooling, all that kind of stuff. Check them out, and we'll see you in the next one.